And one day I went out for a run, found myself in the middle of Bodmin Moor, didn't know how I got there, where I was, or what to do. Only that, I was in a bad way. I was contemplating not going home, sort of walking out on my family and perhaps kind of ending it all, if you like.
Hi, and welcome to Adventure Habits with me, David Overton, playing host to some of the best adventurers in the world. On this podcast, as usual, we're looking for those 5 adventure habits that you can take into your daily lives from these adventurers to allow a bit more adventure and build up your own adventure habits. And we'll meet someone extraordinary for you in just a minute. Just a quick opportunity here for you to like, share, and follow us as much as you can, and spread the word about this podcast. Is going to be great, because I know on this particular episode, which is, we've done a dozen of these things now, I'm absolutely delighted to invite someone who's been an inspiration to so many people in adventure, Steve Dredge from Status Code 14. Hi, Steve.
David, hi. Great to see you again, and thank you very much for that build-up. I hope I live up to your and other people's expectations. Thank you.
Well, it's been a long time, and we really need to get you on the show and just share because to my mind, you are helping a lot of people discover the adventurer within them with all the activities that you're doing. And we've had a few veterans on the show already, and we had the Cockleshell Heroes on quite recently, and I think that they're doing great things. And people who are following the SOE expeditions of the Second World War, etc. Quite an inspiration. Yours, I kind of think, is more contemporary, brings us more up to date, and I just tell us about yourself and actually, what does Status Code 14 mean?
Okay, so yeah, I mean. I'll come to my background in a moment, but to answer that question very simply. So my background is military and police, and within both of those realms, we use radios for comms, for communications, to talk to each other, and to cut chatter down over the airways, to keep messages succinct, short, understandable. We use codes, and in the police, they're referred to as status codes. One of the most common ones that people have probably heard of, because of all the TV shows on TV and everyone watching the cop programs, would be Code Zero. There's a few programs out there called Code Zero, Officer Down. And what that refers to is when that officer sends that message, that code, that status code, especially Code Zero, it means they need immediate assistance. They need someone to go to their help immediately. Perhaps they're being attacked, perhaps they're in a violent situation, and they need backup. Personally, my favourite one in the police was Code 11. That meant I was going home. So I finished work, and it was time to go back home. The Status Code 14, what that means is the officer who sent that message, they need someone to call them, right? They need to discuss something, and they need a bit of advice. They may need some technical advice. They may need some advice on the situation that they're in or how to deal with something. So when it came to naming our team, and let me just talk about that a minute. So we, like I said, my background, I joined the RAF when I was 18. I spent 9 really good years in that, traveled all over the world, lived in Germany for a couple of years, had a great time. You kind of grow out of that. I wanted to do something else, and my posting back to the UK after Germany was Western-super-Mare. Now, there's nothing wrong with Western-super-Mare, however, but once you've lived in southern Germany, down in Bavaria in the mountains, it's a bit of a change. Yeah. So I decided to pull the pin, as we say, get out and do something else, and I joined Devon Cornwall Constabulary. Something I'd always wanted to do from being a kid, and I spent the next 26, 27 years in Devon and Cornwall Police. Had a great career. I was really fortunate. Everything I applied for, I got. I was on various specialist teams, including the Tactical A Group. We were the guys in black who'd go through the doors and windows, executing warrants. Yeah. And when we weren't doing that, we were used as search teams on major inquiries, gathering evidence at murder scenes, for example, and dealing with some pretty hefty jobs.
Wow, so deep end.
Yeah, we were, and it's from that I think that perhaps some of my I don't want to call them issues, but some of the problems I faced in later life stemmed from. And I'll briefly touch on those later. But yeah, and then throughout my career, like I say, quite varied. I was a drugs officer for a while, drugs expert witness, and then towards the end of my career, I'd always wanted to join the firearms team. I'd never done it. It was a bit of an itch I wanted to scratch. And there were 5 of my mates who I'd worked with before in the tactical A group. We all said, let's do it, let's join it, let's see if we can do it. 14 of us started, 14 of us finished. I don't know whether it's because we were that desperate we needed more firearms officers, or whether we were that good, but we all got through. And it was quite an achievement, and I was very, very pleased with that. I stepped away from that towards the end of my career, and I actually finished doing an office job. And again, that's because of things that happened. So I have touched on that. In 2017, I got diagnosed with PTSD. I'd gone through a period in my life of anxiety and depression. I was awake at night with horrendous nightmares, and this was all to do with the trigger at work. Something happened which triggered a lot of feelings and emotions that I thought I'd dealt with in that 27-year career, and they hadn't been dealt with properly. So off the back of that, I was in a pretty bad way, to the extent that I was considering just walking out of my family and possibly even worse than that. I think people can kind of guess what, the kind of state I was in and what I was thinking. At that time, my best friend, who still is, I'm proud to say, Simon Lemon, who's also co-founder of Status Code 14, he realised, there was something wrong and I needed help, and he realised that I needed something to look forward to and something to do.
So you literally gave him a code 14?
Yeah, it was kind of that. When you say that now, I did. There was one day in particular, I had been trying to fix myself because I couldn't sleep at night and I couldn't control what was going on in my head, all these irrational thoughts, the nightmares, the night terrors, waking up screaming, like I say, not wanting to leave the house, having flashbacks during the day and the night. I was suffering from sleep deprivation. So I threw myself into physical fitness, something I've always loved, and I would go running, and I would just run and run and run. And, I suppose I was a bit like Forrest Gump in a way. One day I started running and I just carried on. But what I found was, and what I was hoping, it would make me tired, it would help me get to sleep, and it would help me control myself. Because I couldn't control what was going on in here, I thought I can control my physical body. I can control what I do with it. So that had a positive effect initially. And then as time went on, I still wasn't sleeping at night, so I was just grinding myself down, making the matter worse. And one day I went out for a run, found myself in the middle of Bodmin Moor, didn't know how I got there, where I was, or what to do. Only that, I was in a bad way. I was contemplating not going home, sort of walking out of my family and perhaps kind of ending it all, if you like. So I put that call into Simon, literally, I need help, mate, come and get me. Very fortunate he found me. And then that was kind of the catalyst, if you like, for me to ask for help. Previously,
That's
I kind of
extraordinary catalyst. Just unpacking some of that. I didn't even realise that there was so much in the name. It's obviously a really well thought through initiative that's basically born of your own experience and terrible conditions that most of us can only begin to guess or imagine what's behind it.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, what we found out, and by that stage I was desperate. I'd hidden it for about probably 18 months, as and I'm not generalising, but most of us men do. It was a fear of talking about it, the fear of that stigma, the fear of being labelled as being mental, the fear of people thinking you're weak, the fear of people thinking you can't cope, and just that uncertainty of what would happen if you did say, I'm broken and I need help. If it's a physical injury, a broken arm, broken leg, people say, no problem, get to the doctors, we'll sort you out. People feel sorry for you. Oh, he's got a broken arm, he's got a broken leg.
Yeah.
When it comes to mental illness, it's still, I think it's a lot better now, it really is. But back then, especially in the role that I was in, and it's ridiculous, that kind of alpha male, forward-facing, we're there to help other people, sort their problems out. And when you can't help yourself, you feel emasculated. You feel literally, it's your world has ended. And it was that point I got to. And, with the encouragement of my family, who are absolutely fantastic, my wife and my children, and, who I'd hidden all this from, I was able to ask for help. And the minute I did ask for help and put my hand up and say, look, I'm broken, I need someone to fix me. The minute those words came out, I mean, the day it happened, I broke down sobbing, crying my eyes out on the floor of the doctor's. In fact, there was a nurse. He was a nurse in the police station who had been a firearms officer in his time, so he kind of knew my background. Literally deep sobbing, ugly face crying, the whole thing was going on. And he said, "You're not well." He said, "You're not well, are you, Steve?" And I said, "You're absolutely right."
That's an understatement. Of the highest order. Yeah. I mean, those things, they get bottled up for a long time. They do. We've not had him on the show yet, but we do quite a lot of work with a chap called Nick Goldsmith, and he's a great advocate of using the outdoors and adventure, a bit like yourself, really using the outdoors and adventure, and for him, small holding and all of that stuff, bushcraft, to try and get that slow, meditative return to some sort of, he wouldn't even call it normality, just being able to manage it, because it's something that's there, right? And it is, as I understand it, you have to manage it, and you found the way through, I guess, through your business, or whatever led on. So what did that lead to? That call for help? So
that call for help, initially back then, Devon and Cornwall Police Occupational Health Unit had a system of referrals to a mental health practitioner, and it was very much a kind of cookie cutter approach. One system fix everybody, and you were allocated 6 sessions with a practitioner, a clinician who would. It was CBT, so cognitive behaviour therapy, and you'd go along, and then once you'd had your 6 sessions, you were fixed and you came back to work and everything was fine. And that doesn't work for everybody. In fact, I don't know anybody it does work for. You've got to find the right practitioner. You've got to find, whether it's a coach or a counsellor, you've got to find what's right for you. It's the same as anything. It's like a pair of shoes. There's no point in having a pair of shoes if they look great. If they cause you grief when you're walking, you don't want them. So I had my 6 sessions, and it was very much a case of tell me about the incidents that you remember. And when I said I was on this specialist team, we were literally in murder scenes on your hands and knees, picking up evidence, and that evidence could be anything from physical evidence, knives, weapons, to in the most extreme body parts. So we encountered all sorts of things. The same with RTCs and accidents. You are exposed to high-level trauma within the victims, emotional trauma from them, and you're expected to deal with it, get on with it, be professional, which is what we do, and we do it really, really well. The police are fantastic at doing it, but you bounce from that, sometimes there was one day when we had 2 major incidents in one day. We were dealing with one incident which was bloody and gory. That finished, and we were straight on to the next one. Yeah. So there was no time in between to defuse, or what we call now TRIM, trauma risk intervention management. We just didn't have the opportunity to do it. Yeah. And so you can see how layers and how your metaphoric bucket would get full.
And this is, I mean, for anyone in the kind of civilian world like me, this is, the non-uniform world. It's almost surprising to hear that probably the depths of the problem actually came from your policing career, rather than the military career that came before it. It's, for me, that's actually quite a surprise. It's a shock. But of course, it's almost like a societal expectation upon the police that you can take this and you'll just stand up to it and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Simon, when he talks about it, Simon's been stabbed on duty, and for him, he was expected to, get over it, carry on, and then go to the next incident, knowing that could happen again. Yeah. So it is. There is a lot that happens, and the type of people that we are, we do carry on. You do go back into work. You do your job. It's what we're paid for, and that's what you do, and you think it's normal.
So I'm building up a picture here now of you. You've got the background. You reached the dark spot in life, and you've got this military background. You've actually brought in the health and fitness bit. You're exercising to get to sleep, all of that stuff. But all of this seems to have come together in what you're currently doing with Status Code 14. Just run us through a few of those things that you're doing and how it's helped sort you out.
Absolutely. So going back to what Simon said, we need a goal. You need a goal. You need something to work towards. And we kind of came together. This was all starting to build off the back of that. And it was a case of, right, well, look, if we're going to do something, let's not just do one thing. Let's do 5 events. If we're going to do five events, let's make them interesting, difficult, and see off the back of it if we can raise awareness about being open about mental health, breaking that stigma, and in turn raise some money for an organisation who helped me. I will name them. They're called Rock to Recovery. They're absolutely fantastic. A very different treatment style to any other practitioners out there. They're coaches, they're not counsellors, and they're absolutely superb. So off the back of that, I just want to go back 15 years. 15 years ago, we were coming back from a job. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd been in the van. Simon said, "Do you want to row the Atlantic Ocean?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Why?" I said, "It's dangerous." And he just sat there and went, "Okay." And he carried on. And then 8 years after that, he said to me, "Steve," he said, "do you want to row the Atlantic?" I said, "Are you still going on about that?" And I said, "No, nothing's changed. It's still dangerous. It's still a long way. It's uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it." When I was ill and at my lowest ebb and had very little regard for myself, Simon took his opportunity. And he came in. He came in and he said, "Mate," he said, "how do you fancy rowing the Atlantic?" And I think I said at that stage, I didn't really care what happened to me. I was like, "Do you know what? Let's just go and do it. If it shuts you up, let's do it." So that's how it all began.
One of your habits, isn't it? Talk your friends into it when they're at their lowest.
Seek your opportunity. Yeah, that's what it is. So we then embarked on a plan. We knew we wanted to do the ocean. We wanted to enter a race. At that time, the biggest and most recognised race of its time, the ocean rowing race, was the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. It's now changed its name to the world's toughest row, run by a great company called Atlantic Campaigns. And to do that, we had to raise awareness of ourselves, and we had to raise money to enter it. So we didn't want to appear on the scene as the new guys on the block without any kind of credentials behind us. So we thought, let's do some smaller events first. So the first small event was running across Scotland from coast to coast.
Small event, why not? I mean, you had a spare day.
Absolutely. So it was. We started at Inverness Castle, and we were going to finish in Fort William. So we used something called the Great Glen Way, which runs down all the way through the lochs, Loch Ness, Loch Lochy, Loch Oik, then along the Caledonian Canal right into the back of Fort William. Absolutely beautiful. It was planned that 2 of us were going to do it. Me and one of the other guys in the team. He was a commercial diver working offshore. This was just at the end of COVID. And he was fine as long as he was offshore. He got a job in Germany just for one day, and because he'd been exposed in Germany, he couldn't come back. So he phoned me up, and he's like, "Steve," he said, "that run we're supposed to be doing? You're going to have to do it on your own." I said, "What?" Because we were going to mimic our rowing routine on the boat, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. One of us was going to run for 2 hours, one would be in the van for 2 hours, and we'd rotate round.
Yeah.
So I said, right, I've got to do it on my own. So then it was a case of change the mindset.
Double the challenge that you were expecting.
Double the challenge, double the distance. So it was a case of, what we found was when you're planning an event, when you're planning an expedition or you're planning an adventure in the outdoors, it's a case of it's not real while you're planning it. Once you pull the pin on that event and you publicise it, it becomes very real. And we're men of our word. We didn't want to look stupid. We didn't want to say we're not going to do it. It was a case of, look, we said we're going to do this event now. Let's do it. So I started at 10:30 Inverness Castle, and I finished just over 24 hours later, 12 o'clock the following day in Fort William. So it was absolutely, it was shocking.
And so that was the kind of launch. Did you have that terrific brand you've got on there? Did that all come as
we did? Yeah. So we were Status Code 14 then. And that was kind of the launch event, if you like, to say, look, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is what we intend to do. We made a pitch deck, which I think you saw at the Great Outdoor Show when we first met you back in 21, 22, I think it was.
Yeah. It would have been, it would have been one of those ones. You were pretty fresh out of the boat, I think, when we saw you the first time.
We were getting ready to do the row that time, actually. So we were building up. We were there with Mustang, actually, the clothing company. Yeah, we were there with them. So that was the first one. Then Simon took a team and they did a triathlon relay, which was run from Marble Arch to the coast, swim the channel, cycle to Paris. So they did that in relay. I don't like swimming, so I didn't do that one.
Well, I think it was time that you took some time off and let the other people at Code 14 take over.
We've always supported each other when we've done that kind of thing. So yeah, it was very much my role then was support driver on that, and looking after the guys when they were in and out of the van. And that was all building up to the Atlantic Row. That was we started that on the 12th of December 2022, and it sounds ridiculous when you say it, but we finished on the 11th of February 2023.
Right.
So 60 days.
It's a big sea, right?
It is. It's a big sea. A lot happened in between with regards to the weather, but we started at a little island called La Gomera in the Canary Islands, and we finished in Antigua. So the actual rum line, if you like, it's just under 3,000 miles, but because of the weather that year, I think we ended up doing a lot more than that.
Did you capture your zigzag across?
We did. There's a great company out there. There's a great company out there called Yellow Brick, and they do all the teams for that event, and you can see your actual route and the headings that you took on that and where you ended up and the time it took.
I heard about Yellow Brick. They seem to be the go-to for all those kind of big challenges. I guess is that Yellow Brick because of the size of the unit they give to take with you?
It is a bit smaller now. I think when they started out, it was the size of a brick, but now it's probably about the size of a large iPhone. It's a bit fatter. But they are great bits of kit. They've also got an emergency function on them as well, so you can press the button and you can send a coordinate that long, and you will then obviously you can initiate a rescue off that if you need to.
Fantastic. So, Steve, there you are. You've done the Atlantic, and bring us up to date now. What are the things in the Status Code have done, like in the last year or so? I know you've done some work with a mutual friend of ours, Danny Bent.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we've got 5 events planned. We did the row was the 3rd, our 4th one. We started in September last year. Danny runs a great event called the Great Norse Run, not North, Great Norse Run. That's because
he's great with a title, that guy, isn't he? Just great.
He's great. Danny, one of Danny's credentials is he's the only man who's pogoed across Togo.
It is.
So he does like playing with words. But he's a great guy, and every year he puts together groups of people and takes us to some great places to do these amazing runs. He's done Tajikistan as well, running up there, up in the mountains across to Afghanistan. That's another incredible thing he does. But in our case, it was Iceland. We were with 36 other people. A lot of those were supporting us from Status Code 14 and Rock to Recovery. And we started off in the north, a place called Akureyri, right up in the north of Iceland. And 10 days, 9 marathons later, consecutive, we finished down in the south, near Vic.
Right. Okay.
And it's people use the word.
That's in the winter time as well. Did you say you started that? Yeah.
So that was August into September. Yes, and the weather was. We weren't expecting what we got. We weren't underprepared because we always. As a result of doing our challenges, we kind of planned for every eventuality. There was a kit list what we took, but the snow came early, to say the least, and the winds were horrific. Once you get up from Akureyri onto like the central plateau, it's all black sand. It's barren. It's as I imagine Mars would be. Very little shelter. Yeah. One night we had 2 main base camp tents with us. There's a film made of the event called the Great Norse Run 2024 2024. Yeah, 2024. It's on YouTube if anyone wants to have a look at it, and you really get a taste of what the event was like. We had the two big yellow Jack Wolfskin base tents, which we managed to get up one night in the storm, and then everyone else tried to put their small single-man, two-man tents in the wind shadow of that, and it was horrific. We woke up in the morning, and you know when you're a child and you wake up in the morning, everything's quiet, the wind had dropped, and there's the dullness of sound. It was like, what's going on? There was these dark shadows by the side of the tent, and you look outside, and then you realise it snowed, and there was so much snow everywhere. That peace and quiet was soon burst by Danny playing "Let It Snow," I think, from the Disney film or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was so surreal. We had this music blasting, surrounded by snow in the middle of Iceland, but it was just outrageous.
Nice wake up call, hey?
It was. I mean, we were probably 6 days in then, so we were shattered. I mean, every day you had one river crossing at least. One day we had 7 river crossings, and that's a case of shoes off, socks off, wade through. Some people didn't. They just ran.
So these aren't just. This isn't like 9 marathons as we would know marathons. This is 9 hard yards marathons, river crossings, mountains to get up and down. And I remember watching it at the time and just being so impressed with what you guys were doing. I mean, is there a way that, I mean, obviously you've got future events coming up, etc. Is there a way that people can engage, get involved or support?
Absolutely. So most of our stuff is done on social media, as everything these days. So Status Code 14, both on Facebook and on Instagram.
Start following it now.
Yeah. Statuscode14.com is the website, and we do put up updates on there. Feel free to send any messages if anybody wants to get in touch. Simon and I will respond in person. It is just us. There's no one else out there doing it for us. And obviously, if people want to get involved, we have got that capacity. We are now building up to our final event, which is in September next year, and we're taking a team of 8 out to Chamonix, where we'll be climbing Mont Blanc and paragliding from the summit back down. So that's the kind of finale. Beautiful
and challenging, and Mont Blanc. That's going to be a big challenge. I mean, Okay, so you're bringing 8 people along, and who are these lucky 8 people?
So we've got a few of the guys are the guys that came on the Iceland run with us. Nathan's a super guy. He takes part in Spartan events literally all over the world. Very unassuming, quiet character. Lovely guy. We've got Scott, who came with us to Iceland. Scott works for a large yacht manufacturer. He's a really competent sailor. He's been in several races, world-class races, and he's an exceptional runner. But if you saw him, you wouldn't put him in that category. But he can run.
He's a climber and a jumper as well.
He doesn't want to fly. So we've only got 5 people flying from the summit. So those that want to fly are doing a training course in September out in Chamonix this year, and then the others will be carrying our kit now that we don't need to take with us. So fantastic. We've got a good bunch of people coming with us.
Well, good. Well, look, Steve, this is the Adventure Habits podcast, and I think you've told people enough to fully qualify you as someone we should all be listening to about adventure habits. And so I'm now going to tease out of you what your first adventure habit is. What is it? What was the habit that you want to share with everyone that could actually help them with the way they manage or help their lives somehow, or maybe just get a little bit more adventure into their lives?
I think perseverance. And I know, especially in this forum, I'll say perseverance, and people will think, oh yeah, I've got to get to the end of the walk that day. I've got to climb that summit. I've got to get down that river. I've got to get to the top of that mountain. It's not that. What we found, especially in our campaign in the build-up to the row, was the amount of knockbacks you get, the negativity, the naysayers who say, why are you doing that? Why are you putting yourself at risk? Why are you doing that run? Why are you doing that expedition? Why are you going to the North Pole? Rather than saying, congratulations, that's amazing, well done. It's about overcoming those obstacles and persevering. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that watch this and listen to this will be looking for sponsorship from companies. We wrote hundreds, if not thousands of emails, made hundreds, if not thousands of phone calls to companies just to try and get interest and backing, knockback after knockback after knockback. It's having that belief and that perseverance and that can do and will do attitude that will make it happen. And again, transferring that into everyday life. If you believe in something strong enough, you'll get it, you'll do it. And it's just about sticking with it, just showing up every day and putting that time in. It may not seem like you're making a lot of progress at that moment, but in the long run, you're making massive progress. So perseverance.
I love that one. Perseverance, and with that, I'm writing that will do, can do attitude, and really the fight that we all have to take against the naysayers. Actually, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in life. There's always going to be negative comments, views, or whatever that come in, and it's a case of how you handle those, I guess, that makes you. Okay, so what's your second habit?
Be honest. Be honest with yourself and be honest with your teammates. Something we did every day on the boat, 10:30 every day, we'd stop. We weren't racing, we were there for the adventure. We'd stop, we'd make a coffee, we'd look each other in the eye and we'd say, David, how are you feeling? What's happened to you today? Is there anything I'm doing that's annoying you? Did you know that when you do this, that or the other, you make this funny noise and it's really getting to me? The little things like that in everyday life. And for us on that boat,
sounds like marriage guidance.
Especially when you're in such a confined, controlled environment of being on an ocean rowing boat in the middle of the ocean, tiny little things can spoil it. Or if you don't bring to the attention a friend or colleague that, look, I've got this really bad sore literally on my backside. If we don't get it tended to, it's going to get infected. My race is over. It's about being honest. It's about being honest about your feelings, your physical well-being, and caring and sharing about your members of your team on that adventure, on that expedition. So I think it's this, and it's quite a brave thing to do that, and I hark back to my kind of, that time when I came out, if you like, about my mental illness. It's a case of having the courage to do that. For me, it wasn't courage. I was scared stiff if I didn't say anything. It was all going to go horribly wrong. So, I think it's about being honest. And also being honest with your ability at the time of an event. When we were in Iceland, I had chronic stomach pain. I think I picked up norovirus somewhere. And I had to admit, I'm going to have to get into the Land Rover of shame. And that's all I could think. I'm going to have to get in that Land Rover and be taken to, one of the huts.
Yeah. And, I guess relating back to your as you just said, it's about kind of being frank with yourself and your colleagues before it becomes a crisis. And, honesty is, start with yourself and then share it with the others.
Exactly. And it pays dividends in the future. It really does. Whether it's, because sometimes people go into adventures and expense thinking, I've done all the training, I've done everything I can do, I'm going to smash it. And a lot of that is taken up with pride. You don't want to admit that you can't do it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's always another day. There's always another summit. There's always another ocean. Some of the best decisions you can make are the hardest ones, which means you survive.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about the long game. Definitely.
Fantastic. So being honest and having perseverance. We've got two things. What's your third?
Part of that is listening to your inner voice. We've all got an inner voice, right? We've all got that little devil angel on our shoulders. Sometimes you'll be in a situation, even just walking down the street or going back to your car, or you'll see something and you'll know it's not right. Now, whether that's your intuition, whether it's our fight and flight, our primitive kind of caveman in there saying something doesn't feel quite right, listen to your inner voice. It certainly saved us on occasions in the ocean when things were going wrong. You just knew something wasn't quite right, so you pay extra attention. You make sure you're clipped on. You make sure when you open the door to come out of your cabin, that you aren't going to get swamped by a massive wave. But also, it's using that inner voice in a motivational way and a positive way. I got told something the other day, and it's really quite poignant. You can catastrophize a bad day So say something is going horribly wrong. You're on your expedition and all your food's gone, your gas has run out. You've gone to one of your ropes in your bag and it's frayed, or your carabiner has got a crack in it, and you're thinking, this is horrendous. This is going to be really, really bad. Or you can turn it around and think, this is going to be memorable. We're not going to forget this. And you've immediately changed it in that, you've made it that bit of a challenge. You've made it that kind of, we're going to sort this out. We're going to get it done.
It's something that you look back on.
Absolutely. And something I use daily is 3 simple little I ams. I am, I can, I will. I am going to do it, I can do it, and I will do it. And you can use that in anything. If you're out walking.
It's lovely to have a method along with the habit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
I am, I can, I will.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll be using that one myself. And so we're on to your 4th habit now. What do you think?
Control the controllables. That's what we do. That's what we did on the boat. That's what we did in Iceland. That's what we do. That's what we'll do when we go in at Mont Blanc. I think the easiest way to kind of describe it is the first 5 days out of La Gomera when we started the race, the weather was horrendous. We had beam on seas. The wind was pushing us totally the wrong way. We had, really big squalls coming through. We were soaking wet. We were fed up. Water makers broke. Our solar broke. We had no power for 2 days. Now, we couldn't control the weather. There's no point getting in a mood, getting angry, shouting at the sky, going and just wasting energy on it. You can't control it. You can't control the direction of the wind. You can't control the direction of the sea. But what you can control is you and yourself within that environment. Your day-to-day routine, which will make things easier. You can control what time you get up. You can control the fact that you're going to make your bed, clean your teeth. You're going to start the day by eating because you need that sustenance. You're going to look after your friends. And if everybody does that, you regain control of a situation where you feel you haven't got that.
I love it. I mean, we were having a conversation just before this started about the 7 habits, and this is the whole responsibility thing. You have control over your response to a situation. You don't have to just deal with the uncontrollables. Look at what's within your control and start controlling it.
We used to say it, do the simple things well. And once you do those, it builds upon itself. It's self-proliferating. Just the little things you do, you're taking back control. Yeah, the weather's rubbish. Yes, your clothes are wet. Yes, your igniter won't work on your cooker, but you can eat cold food. You can drink. You can make it work. And it's all about taking back that little bit of control, and then you're in charge of that situation. And it just makes you feel so much better.
I love it. I tell you what, one thing for me, I'll take away from that is I'm not going to row the Atlantic.
Honestly, we haven't touched on it. There's a whole lot. There's so much I could talk about with regards to that, and maybe we'll do that another day. But,
maybe I think so. Over a cold beer at the Armchair Adventure Festival, perhaps, or maybe at the at the National Outdoor Expo next year. Who knows?
Let's do that. Yeah, we will.
Okay, so we're down to the last one, Steve. Your 5th bit of wisdom, your adventure wisdom to hand on to our lucky listeners.
I'm really lucky now. I'm in a position where I'm a contracted safety officer for that Atlantic rowing event, and for me, I think, and everyone can use this, no matter who you are and no matter what realm you're in, it's encouraging other people to do something similar. They don't have to go out and run 9 marathons across Iceland. They don't have to row an ocean. But encouraging people just to adventure, to explore, to get out there. It's proven that altruism, it's so beneficial for yourself, and you do it in a selfless way, not expecting anything for it, not wanting people to like you on social media or whatever. I mean, some of the stuff we've done, we don't even mention what we've done, and it's just lovely knowing and seeing people succeed, seeing people grow, seeing people seeing people's lives improve. It is. There's people that have come to us after we've done our talks who have said, thank you. He said, until I heard you talking, and this is both Simon and I felt I was alone. I felt I couldn't talk. You've helped me make a decision. So it is, and when you see people develop after that and go on to do these incredible things, it's heartwarming, and you just get that glow inside, and you think, you now understand how I feel, how everyone else feels. It goes and does something incredible, and it doesn't have to be massive. For some people, just getting up in the morning, washing their face, cleaning their teeth, and making their bed, it's a massive achievement. But if you can help somebody to do that, they are taking those first small steps to who knows what. Just that life improvement. That's what it's about.
Well, that's great. Well, and that's what we're all about on the Adventure Habits podcast. So you kind of get what we're trying to do here now, and you can see why you were just the right person to have on this show. Steve, I'm so proud to know you, and so pleased that you've taken your time to be on the show here. I think it's a useful time for me to recap over those 5 adventure habits, which you listeners really need to live up to, because you've seen where they've come from. They've come from the deepest parts of Steve, the things that perhaps we all don't want to face in our lives, and Steve's turned something so positive out of all that stuff. So the first one was about perseverance and to work against those naysayers, build that belief, and make your dreams come true despite what others might say, and then be honest. And that starts with yourself, and then it's being honest with others as well. No one's an island, right, Steve? That's the take home message I get from you.
Absolutely. And you really appreciate those friends when they're there for you, and your teammates on the next bed. Something will happen, someone will help you, and it's worth its weight in gold. It really is.
And I love the next one, which is almost like a semi-spiritual one. I'd say listen to your inner voice. Yeah. It is there. Quite a lot of the time it's shouting quite bad things, actually. But there's also a good deal of instinct in there as well, and it's worth digging into that. And then control the controllables. That's like we were drawing the parallels. That's about taking responsibility for your own actions in response to things that are happening. And then encourage others as well. And I think, Steve, what a fantastic example that is. So not only are you going out and doing these massive challenges, you're then sharing your story with people who've got similar PTSD backgrounds or depression, etc., and it helps them to cope with their situations. And what better thing can you do for your fellow human?
No, thank you. Thank you. What we hope now going forward is that Status Code 14 becomes a vehicle because we can only do these events for so long. When these are wearing out, we're all getting a little bit fragile. So we're going to step back. We want it to be a vehicle for anyone who wants to do their own challenge, who wants to find themselves again, perhaps, wants to go and, prove that they're still in there and they can still do it. So that's what we want to become. So.
And for people like that, do subscribe and share this podcast. Around Steve's community, around our community, we really want people to get engaged with this. I think PTSD is a subject we'll come back to time and again over the next few episodes. And if you dig into the last few ones, our first one was the SOE expeditions, and that's firmly rooted in all of that as well. Steve, thank you so much for being a friend of Splash Maps. Thanks for coming on the Adventure Habits podcast, good luck in getting up to the summit of Mont Blanc, and then jumping off it.
We'll let you know how we get on, David, and we'll be taking one of your maps with us, I feel, so we can get that all plotted on there. It'll be brilliant.
Oh, that would be beautiful. That would be beautiful. Remember, you can wash off all the stains afterwards.
Yeah, so there's no blood on there.
Okay, thanks, Steve.